Hi there, 4-Hers. My name is Andrew Green, and I'm a former 4-H member and leader from Nova Scotia. And today I'm going to talk to you about how to judge poultry. Now, even though today's examples will be looking at chickens, we'll be using pretty broad concepts and terms that can be applied to all of our domestic fowl, whether it's ducks or geese or turkeys. And without going into too much detail about the 4-H format, because I'll leave your other leaders to go over that, we'll just be talking about kind of what we want to look for in our birds. One of the first things that we want to do when we are about to judge a class is to make sure we know what the class actually is. Now, fortunately, the 4-H staff is usually great to always make sure this is posted. But if you're ever in a situation where it's not, you can always ask the judge, and they have to tell you what the class is. The next thing you want to do is, based on what the class is, make sure that all of your entries fit the class. So for today's class, we're going to have White Rock Bantam hens. And as you can see, we have 4 birds right here. So the first thing that we want to do is to make sure that obviously each specimen is supposed to be in this class or fits the class. So first of all, based on our class, we want to make sure that they're all White Rock Bantams. And I can save you the trouble today by telling you that they are. The next part you want to look at is if it is a gender-specific class, that they are all the correct gender. So in this case, our class is hens. So we want to make sure that we go through and make sure that they're all females and no males are present. Otherwise, that will help us divide the class pretty easy. So if we were taking a quick look, I think you guys could probably agree with me that there might be a bird that might not be the correct gender in this class. And if you guess this one right here, the male with the larger comb, you're correct. So automatically we know he's going to be at the bottom of the class. So then we've already got our class down to 3. So now we're going to have to start looking at some more specifics. The challenge with judging various breeds of birds is that their breeds are so specific versus compared to other livestock, whether considering dairy. Sure, there are breed differences between a Jersey and a Holstein, but for the most part, if you can judge one, you can judge the other. Birds are quite different in the fact that what's a disqualification for one is a breed requirement for the other. So without being super familiar about a lot of breeds, it can be a little overwhelming to do a really good job judging these. So one of the first things that I always suggest that we look at once we make sure everything fits the class is we want to look at feather quality. Because even if you have the best bird in the world, if the feathers are not in good condition, that bird unfortunately might be at the bottom of the class for today. So looking at these birds briefly, you want a few quick indicators to figure out if they're in good feather is the fact that you can tell that there's no broken feathers, no missing feathers. Ideally, you want them as clean as possible, and I'll admit that these birds certainly could be cleaner today. Another thing, too, is we can use our showmanship skills to actually handle the birds and take a better look at their wings and their body feathers to see if they're all intact. Now, a little harder with white birds, but certainly your more colored ones, you can look at detailing in the feathering as well as the quality of color, so including luster, if there's any pattern on the feather, how well defined that is. Once you kind of go through that, you also want to look at the health of the bird. So you want your birds to be alert, vigorous, active. You don't want a bird sitting in the corner looking like it's maybe a little sick or not feeling the best today. You want your show birds, when you're looking for them, you want the one that's showing off the best and looks to be the healthiest on the day. Some other characteristics that are important for a lot of breeds of poultry are considering their economical qualities. So when these birds were first recognized by the standard, a lot of them were recognized considering the characteristics that they're originally used for. So considering meat birds, you wanted big, broad birds, wide, full breasts. Try to think about, I always tell my younger 4-H members, think about which one has the most chicken nuggets. So which birds kind of, have the most meat. And certainly when we're looking at our egg-laying breeds, they're going to be a little bit more refined, but once again, you still want like a good body capacity and stuff like that. So some general terms that I consider for all birds, you know, would be about quality of skull. You want good width of skull, deep full breasts. You don't want a really prominent keel. You want them well filled in. You want birds to be balanced and have proportion and be proportionate as well. You want them balanced on their legs. So with regards to actually how they stand as well, which is super important. And then certainly, you know, if we are working with a breed that we are familiar with the characteristics, we can then go ahead and use those characteristics to kind of decipher the class. And then once we kind of work through the class, we can then start to place it. So I like to look at each bird, look at the class collectively, and then go ahead and look at each bird individually. Well, we've already decided where one is going, and one being the male. But then we need to figure out what we're going to do with the others. So I like to do an assessment outside of the cage and then take out each bird to look at. And in the essence of time, we're not going to take each bird out today. But, you know, you'd want to be using your showmanship skills, as we mentioned, to take a good overview of the bird and try to work through them one at a time to figure out where you want to place them. Try to break apart the class from, rather than looking at 4 birds at once, to looking them at 2. And then adding it to be a group of 3 and then to 4. And then you always want to make sure that you take time at the end to practice your reasons and make sure that you're very comfortable with them for when you want to give them to the judge.